Driver, an ex-con, is released from jail, but from the look in his eyes, it doesn't seem like prison did him any good. The first thing he does is run to a spot where a car is stashed for him, along with information about a man and a gun. He pulls out an old picture of himself and his brother Gary, tucking it into the sun visor before driving off. As expected, he speeds away, crosses a road without caring about oncoming traffic, walks into an office building uninvited, and shoots the man from the photo right in the head. It's clearly obvious jail didn't change him. Meanwhile, in a rundown building, Cop buys drugs from a dealer. Inside his car, he injects himself and drifts into his own world. The next morning, he shows up at the crime scene brazenly smoking without a care in the world. He's been assigned to the case alongside Detective Cicero, who is clearly unhappy about the partnership. The feeling's mutual, but Cop has no choice since his retirement is near. Fed up, Cicero grabs his cigarette and tosses it into a cup of coffee. The news reports the murder and describes the suspect, though no name has been released. Driver visits Roy, the man who gave him the car and information. Roy wants payment and is shocked by the amount Driver brings out. When he asks how Driver got it, Driver isn't interested in that conversation and only wants more names. Trying to play smart, Roy claims it took 10 years to track the men, which costs a lot of money, so the price has gone up. He wants to renegotiate their deal, but Driver isn't having it. In all seriousness, he tells Roy that the price has just reduced. Angry, Roy calls in Kenny, a fighter from Guam, to handle Driver. Built like Goliath, Kenny moves to do just this, but instantly freezes when he sees a tattoo on Driver's hand. He recognizes it and knows exactly who Driver is. Clearly shaken, he tells Roy that Driver is a ghost who can't be messed with, before scrambling out of the place. Roy is stunned and yells at Kenny to come back and do his job, but Kenny doesn't look back. Well, he likes his life very much. Without needing to be told, Roy quickly gives Driver the documents and says he even owes him a refund. Guess Roy likes his life too. At the station, Cicero and Cop go through CCTV footage of the shooting. Cicero thinks Driver looks familiar. Cop tries to light another cigarette, but Cicero's glare stops him. Watching closely, Cicero notices the victim recognized Driver before getting shot. Driver reviews the files and addresses of his next targets, then heads out. It seems more trouble's on the way. That night, Cop calls his ex-wife Marina, but she doesn't let him talk much. After confirming he'll take their son to the game the next day, she hangs up. Elsewhere, Killer finishes yoga and goes upstairs to meet his lover, Lily. He tells her he's done with yoga, boasting that he's beat it. He wants to try something more ultimate, but Lily worries that a real corpse pose might be the only thing that'll satisfy him. Killer disagrees, insisting he's never felt more alive. He goes close for a passionate kiss, but his phone interrupts. The man on the line says there's a new client. They're gathering details and will soon send the target. The client believes the target is after him and wants the job done fast. Immediately the call ends, the photo arrives, and it's no other than Driver. Lily asks who he is, but Killer says nothing. He heads downstairs, grabs one of many fake IDs and license plates, then mounts the plate on his car. Lily prepares his guns, and after a goodbye kiss, Killer drives off. However, he stops the car and runs back to kiss her passionately one more time. Later, while scouting the area, Killer speaks with his online therapist. He says his jobs are getting harder to commit to. She suggests a break, but that's not an option for him. When she mentions he's never told her what he does, Killer lies, saying he's a surgeon who removes cancer. In his world, cancer definitely means people. She offers advice about stress in the medical field as Killer photographs the Casa Grande building and studies his documents. Back at the station, Cicero is still on the case. Sergeant Mallory apologizes for pairing her with Cop and advises her to give him a chance. Cop enters, asking for updates, and Cicero shows him mugshots of Driver. The warden from Murdoch recognized Driver in the news. Apparently, Driver made a lot of money running contraband in prison. Cop asks if he was in a gang, but Cicero says no. Driver served his full 10-year sentence without protection or friends. Everyone came after him, and he took them all down. The tattoo on his hand was enough to keep others at bay. He'd been arrested for a bank robbery at Bakersfield First 10 years ago. He was the driver, an exceptional one, who pulled off the escape perfectly. Cop wonders how he got caught. Elsewhere, a young woman helps an elderly man into his apartment. Grateful, he offers her a drink, wanting some company. Meanwhile, Killer, watching through binoculars from his car, tells his therapist he changed careers to resolve some personal issues. As he watches a car pull up, he goes through driver's file and admits he needed a mental and physical challenge. But now, he's bored. While attaching a silencer to his gun, Killer confesses that Lily is a distraction, which can be dangerous in his line of work. Driver, now at Casa Grande, starts reviewing the information on the old man. He straps himself with his gun, then pulls down the visor to look at the picture before getting out of the car. The therapist reminds Killer that he once talked about marrying Lily and starting a family, wondering if that's still something he wants. Tracking Driver with his eyes, Killer cocks his gun. After a quick realization, he tells the therapist she's right.
You know what, you're right.
Hiding the weapon beneath his suit jacket, he steps out and begins to follow Driver. He admits Lily is the woman he wants to spend the rest of his life with. Smiling like everything's finally aligning, Killer says he's going to pop the question. She asks if he's off his meds, and he confirms it. She advises against that, but Killer cuts the call, saying he has to go, shifting his focus back to the task. Driver enters the building, and seconds later, Killer follows. Cicero shows Cop a tape of some men ambushing and taking out a crew. Apparently, Driver's crew was ambushed right after the bank job. Someone had set them up. A twisted person had filmed the whole thing, turning it into his own snuff film. Cop asks where she got the tape, and Cicero explains it came in during her first week as a detective. They had busted a porn operation, and when she walked into the bullpen, the tape was playing. Pretending to take a phone call, she walked out. She didn't have the stomach to watch people murdered in cold blood. She took the case to homicide, but it went nowhere since none of the killers' faces were visible. On the tape, Driver and Gary are the only ones left from their crew of 4. The ambushers demand the money from the bank. One of them threatens Gary, pointing a gun to his head, making Driver really scared. Meanwhile, the young girl finishes her drink and stands to leave, but suddenly begins feeling woozy. Seeing the effects of the drugs, the supposed old man drops his walking stick and goes over to her without aid. On the tape, a gun is pointed at Gary's head, and he apologizes to Driver for dragging him into it. Despite Gary's warnings not to talk, Driver reveals the location of the money. Now standing outside a door, Driver remembers the moment of the ambush, how Gary's throat was slit right in front of him. Turns out, the men who ambushed them are the same ones he's now hunting down, how the tables have turned. Driver kicks down the door and shoots the old man's hand just as he's about to film the young girl. The man begs for his life, but Driver puts a bullet through his head without blinking. He leaves the girl unharmed and walks out, unaware when Killer shows up at the corner with his gun. Just then, a small girl steps out and gasps at the sight of Killer, drawing Driver's attention. After a tense beat, Driver pushes the girl out of harm's way and fires at Killer. Killer shoots back, and gunfire rains through the hallway until Killer ducks behind cover. When he eventually looks up again, ready to shoot, the hallway is empty. He steps into the apartment and hears a car engine roar to life. It's Driver, already gone. Back on the tape, Driver screams that he'll murder them all, but then gets shot in the back of the head. Cicero explains that he was murdered and pronounced DOA at the hospital, leaving cops stunned at how he is now alive. Luckily, the bullet had ricocheted through his skull and exited through his cheek. Now, a metal plate holds the back of his head together. Cicero figures he's targeting everyone on that tape. Cop goes to pick up his son, but Marina yells at him for being late. While driving to the baseball game, Cicero calls with word of a second shooting, likely by Driver. Mallory wants Cop at the scene, and she gives him the address and says she'll arrive in an hour. His son starts looking disappointed, thinking Cop won't come to the game. But cop keeps talking like the call hasn't ended, casually saying he's not available, making his son smile. 2 hours later, he arrives at the crime scene. Mallory discovers that the victim, the man no longer breathing, was the sicko behind the snuff film. First, a telemarketer, now a sex offender. Wonder who's next. Mallory reveals a new twist, sharing that a witness saw a second shooter at the scene. No one recognized him, and both men vanished after exchanging fire. Meanwhile, Killer updates Lily by phone while driving. He says Driver has no finesse, no technique, but he's pure. To him, Driver has no hesitation or fear, and he's faster than him. Lily tells him he'll get Driver, making him wonder how she's so sure. She feels he always does. Taking the moment, he tells her to marry him.
Marry me.
Putting a huge smile on her face. Someone's about to be Mrs. Killer. At a motel, Driver flips through TV channels until he lands on the news about the shootings. He watches for a moment, eyes hard, then shuts off the TV. The next morning, Cicero spots a needle mark on Cop's hand and asks about it. He quickly hides it, mentioning his tattoo instead. He says he used to be with the LA crush before his transfer, surprising Cicero. That's where he met Marina, as she was his CI. She was in bad shape, but went to rehab, and they fell in love. Cicero wonders if Marina was the only one who went to rehab, but Cop brushes it off as history. She clearly doubts him, but Cop insists he's close to retirement and wouldn't mess up the package for his family. When asked how long he's been clean, he lies through his teeth without flinching, telling Cicero it's since his son was born. Driver heads to a woman's house and watches as her husband and son leave. Once they're gone, he tucks his gun and enters the house. While the woman is tending to her baby, she hears a noise and goes to check. She's surprised to find Driver standing in her living room. He picks up a framed photo of the family and stares at it. The sight snaps her out of her shock. She rushes over, grabs the frame from him, and slaps him. She asks why he came, insisting there's nothing for him there. But Driver just looks at her and turns to leave. She stops him, demanding to know why he stopped her from visiting him in prison. Driver says he didn't see the point in ruining 3 lives. He asks if the boy in the photo was their unborn child, but she tells him it's not. They were once together, and when he cut her off, she had an abortion.
I had an abortion.
Driver is devastated. She cries, apologizes, and hugs him. The sound of her baby crying cuts through the moment, and Driver quietly walks out of the house, overwhelmed. She follows, saying she saw what he's doing on TV.
I saw it on TV.
She hopes he takes out every last one of them, but Driver doesn't look back. Killer and Lily get married with only a priest and an empty church as witnesses. Their wedding reception is a shooting competition between the two. Well, it's fitting, since guns are their specialty. Killer talks about starting a family and suggests selling the lake house for a craftsman in Pasadena. Lily asks if he's really going to quit his job. He turns and shoots a bottle off a post, assuring her that he will, then kisses her deeply. Cop visits Marina and begs her to take him back. She refuses since she's trying to build a better life for her son. She asks for the drugs she knows he has, and Cop gives them to her, promising to go to rehab once the case is over. He pleads for her to let him stay one night. Driver arrives at a club for his next target. As the bouncer checks him, he spots and recognizes his mark, the very man who slit Gary's throat. Just like the saying, you reap what you sow, the man gets his karma when he gets stabbed in the neck inside the washroom. Before he passes on, the man begs Driver to call his son and tell him he's sorry. He passes his phone and the number to Driver. Afterward, Driver makes the call and leaves before the police arrive. Meanwhile, Killer scrolls through wedding photos, eventually landing on his childhood pictures. He had problems with his leg as a child, which left a very big scar. With an unstable mood, he brings up Driver's picture and begins cleaning and prepping his guns. Lily sees him and reminds him that he quit. But Killer insists on finishing the job. She pleads with him, scared he might get murdered, but Killer snaps and yells at her to stop. His mind is made up. Cop lies in bed with his son, talking about how he equally doesn't know how to play baseball, but gets up after hearing a noise. In the bathroom, he finds Marina, completely out of it from the drugs. She admits she's scared and says they're going to hell for everything they've done. Every time they cause pain, they create their own hell. The next morning, Killer gets ready to leave. He pauses, looking at the sleeping Lily, but still zeroes out his mind and walks out. On the road, Cop calls Cicero, who tells him both victims were informants. She's stuck in court all day, but wants him to follow up. She's convinced it connects to the ambush. Cop brings up the club stabbing, suspecting Driver. Cicero disagrees because it doesn't fit his MO. However, Cop says he'll ask around anyway. She tells him to follow up, but he hangs up on her. While driving, Driver picks up the man's phone and dials the son's number. But a news report reveals the man is miraculously still alive, fighting for his life in the hospital. Hearing that, Driver flashes back to the throat-slitting memory and hangs up, then violently turns the car around. At the hospital, the man is being attended to at the ICU. Killer gets tipped off on Driver's location and heads to the hospital fast. Driver arrives at the hospital and boldly makes his way in, checking where the man is getting treated. The doctors are working frantically on the man, and Cop casually reads a magazine in the hallway. Driver finds the operating room and enters. Without hesitation, he draws his gun. The doctors back away in fear as Driver unloads multiple rounds into the man. This time, there's no survival. Life has definitely left the man. The shots fired sends the hospital into chaos. Cop is alerted and rushes toward the commotion. Directed down the hallway, he follows Driver's trail to the back and finally spots him walking away. He immediately shoots at him, but Driver shoots back, making him hide. The shootout continues until one of the shots ruptures a gas line, causing flickering lights and smoke. In a life-or-death standoff, Cop turns a corner with his weapon drawn, but freezes. Driver stands right in front of him, gun aimed. Cop's hands begin to shake. His weapon slips from his grasp. He falls to his knees, shuts his eyes, and accepts his demise. Driver sees his badge, and Cop patiently waits for the bullet. However, nothing happens. Opening his eyes, Cop finds no one there. It's just like Driver was a ghost. Moments later, Driver drives out of the hospital. On the road, Killer chases him, and they engage in a brutal car chase. Both are expert drivers, weaving through traffic with skill. Driver manages to outmaneuver Killer by sliding past a trailer and stopping in front of him. Instead of shooting him, Driver aims at the tires and fires. Killer returns fire, hitting Driver in the neck. Before Killer can finish the job, Driver reverses and speeds off. Killer fires again, but it's too late. Frustrated and trembling, Killer takes out his medication. On the phone, the man who assigned him the job says the client wants to pull out, but Killer insists he'll finish it. Driver arrives at his family home and draws his gun on his mother, waking her. He asks about the old man, and she reveals he's passed. Later, she helps remove the bullet from his neck as he flips through the family photo album. She asks why he came, but Driver plainly tells her he came to murder the old man. He believes the old man set them up. Apparently, Gary had gone to him for advice about the bank job, and when Gary refused to cut him in, the old man betrayed them. His mother asks if he really thinks the old man could have murdered his own son, and Driver is certain. She disagrees, saying she's sure he couldn't have. When Driver asks how she's so sure, she hesitates before admitting the old man loved Gary too much. She begins crying, apologizing to Driver because none of it was his fault. The old man wasn't his father, and he was reminded of that every time he looked at Driver. Driver just never stood a chance. She apologizes for not protecting him from all the beatings, breaking into sobs. Driver feels Gary was the only one who ever cared for him, but his mother wonders why Gary pulled him in on the bank job, since he was never a part of what they did. Driver admits he was the one who volunteered when Gary's driver fell out. Gary owed the wrong people a lot of money, and he needed him. Looking at Gary's urn and a framed photo of the group, Driver wonders who set them up if it wasn't the old man. After a long moment of silence, holding Gary's urn in his hands, he gets up and leaves. Driver parks by the side of the road, listening to an evangelist speaking on the radio. The message is about hate, how one should break free from the slavery of hate by forgiving and forgetting. Driver looks at Gary's urn for a few seconds, then makes up his mind and keeps driving. Breaking free just doesn't seem to be in the cards for him. Cop arrives at the office and everyone commends him for almost catching Driver.
Good lead, cowboy. You almost got it.
Cicero approaches and admits his hunch was good, but she warns him never to hang up on her again. She tells him she has something to show him, revealing they may have caught a break. The latest victim was a CI2, just like the others. All three were informants. They've all got records, armed robbery, rape, assault, you name it. Yet none of them did serious time. They snitched their way out of prison, over and over. Cicero and Cop agree the odds of that being a coincidence are slim. She's waiting on the full informant logs. Another file lists the victim's former accomplices. Cop suggests they split them up and check them out. Still driving, Driver listens to the evangelist's voice, glancing at a list of names he's crossed out. Only one name remains. He arrives at a church and watches hatefully from the back. Turns out the evangelist was one of the men. The crowd is energized by the sermon, but when the evangelist's eyes meet Driver's, he freezes. After a long pause, he tells the choir to sing. The service continues, the congregation unaware the Grim Reaper just walked in. After the service, Driver confronts him privately. The evangelist admits he's been wondering when Driver would show. He's been the subject of many sermons lately. Driver says he's heard them, but the evangelist asks if he listened. His wife and son check on him. He assures them he's fine and urges them to go home. Once they leave, he suggests he and Driver walk toward the ocean. On the walk, Driver asks if the boy is his. The evangelist says he's one of 5 adopted. Though he's turned his life around, Driver says it doesn't change what he did. The evangelist agrees, admitting that he wouldn't want it to. Every good he's done hinged on the evil he committed. Driver asks who set them up, but the evangelist doesn't know. He never found out how they knew about the safe house. When he got the call, it was supposed to be easy money. Guard the door, be the lookout. They reach a distance and Driver asks him to hold it there. The evangelist admits he was in a dark place then. When they slit Gary's throat, he couldn't take it. Driver reveals Gary was his brother. Tearfully, the evangelist says he can't bring him back. With raw sincerity, he apologizes for everything, admitting he still took his cut of the money and blew it on drugs and women. He ended up in prison, but it was there he found his calling, helping boys like the both of them. Driver tells him God can't save him from him. The evangelist believes God can save Driver from himself. He pleads to the good in Driver's heart, but Driver stops him. The evangelist continues preaching, but Driver draws his gun. The evangelist asks him to find it in his heart to forgive, but Driver just can't. Smiling, the evangelist says he's already forgiven Driver for what he's about to do. He begins singing, then slowly drops to his knees, making Driver fight his emotions. The evangelist closes his eyes in prayer, and Driver points the gun and fires. The evangelist falls, but a moment later, he stirs. Driver tells him to go back to his family and walks away. Seems God actually saved the evangelist after all. Meanwhile, Killer watches through binoculars from a distance. Driver sits in the empty church, his gun, and the photo of him and Gary laid in front of him. Killer steps in, gun aimed at Driver. Cop also arrives at the church. Just as he's about to get out of his car, Cicero calls, asking where he is. He tells her, revealing Driver and Killer are both inside. Cicero is stunned and asks if he called for backup, but Cop says there wasn't time. She tells him not to go in, but he apologizes for always messing up her case. He asks for a favor. If he doesn't make it out alive, he wants her to tell his son he went out like a man. Cicero pleads with him to wait for her, but Cop hangs up. She rushes out, but the beep of the fax machine stops her. Killer tells Driver to pick up his gun, but Driver refuses. He has nothing against him. This angers Killer, who feels disrespected. He demands acknowledgement, recognition of his skills, but Driver only tells him he's got problems. The words get to Killer. He snatches Driver's gun and points it at him. Looking over Driver's list, he reveals that Driver hasn't finished. Apparently, the person that hired Killer is still out there. Just then, Cop enters, gun aimed at Killer. He orders him to drop the weapon. After a tense beat, Killer complies. But in a sudden twist, Cop shoots Driver down from behind. Killer is stunned. Slowly, it dawns on him that Cop was the one who hired him all along. Cop was also the one who shot Driver the first time. Killer holds up the list, revealing that Driver didn't even know about him. But Cop had already figured it out, especially when Driver didn't shoot him back at the hospital. Gary's girlfriend was Cop's informant, who told him about the bank job. He hired other informants to help steal the crew's score. Killer leaves, but Driver follows, offering him his charge, $1. Cop is confused about the charge, but Killer admits it's just a hobby. On second thought, he tells Driver to keep the money because he didn't earn it, and warns him never to reach out again. On her way to the scene, Cicero flips through files. Mallory tells her units are en route. As Cicero studies the informant logs, something clicks. She realizes who Cop really is. When Mallory confirms that Cop had begged to be assigned to the case, her suspicions are confirmed. Meanwhile, Cop calls Marina, celebrating the case's success and promising to be home soon. He tells her he wants a fresh start, but a shot rings out from behind, taking him down. Driver has risen again. Cop, stunned, asks how he's still alive. Driver tells him it's the metal plate in the back of his head. He fires another shot, finishing Cop for good. Driving away, Killer calls Lily, telling her he's coming home. Cicero later finds Cop's body, but doesn't mention her discovery about his true identity to Mallory. Having finally avenged his brother, Driver scatters Gary's ashes into the ocean, then gets back in his car and drives away.